Oh, hello and welcome everyone. We're just going to give everybody about a minute or so just to trickle on in here. We still have a couple minutes before we start. So just want to give everybody an opportunity to get in, get settled. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here wanting to talk about AI on your lunch break. So commendable and thank you. But let's just give everybody about a minute or a minute and a half just to get in, get situated. Go grab yourself a coffee. Go grab yourself a tea. I had to give up coffee, sadly, because turns out it just really makes me anxious. And that was the cause of a lot of issues for me. So now I am a chai and a regular tea person. Super fun. But if you have any questions, and I'll say this again as we get started, if you have any questions as we go through this CLE, please make sure to put those into the Q&A box on your Zoom. If you are chatting right now, feel free to chat with me and tell me what part of Florida you're watching from. I have plenty of family in Florida, mostly around the Orlando, Holly Hill area. But just tell me where you're watching from. I can feel a little bit closer to y'all, but I am over here actually in Austin, Texas, where I imagine the weather is worse than where you are right now, which is crazy. But yeah, I think we're going to hit 104 today. So very exciting. I won't be leaving my house yet again. Yay. All right, we have about a minute left before we'll really get into this and get our deep dive into AI for attorneys. So let's see here, just making sure we are all good to go. All right, just a few more seconds and we are going to get started. All righty, and perfect. I think, yeah, about 30 more seconds and we're live. All right. Right, perfect. Also, I can't believe the Florida Bar agrees to having me back. I'm very honored to be here again. But I'm very excited. All right, so we're going to get started. So welcome everyone to today's CLE for the Florida Bar. It's the AI-powered attorney, harnessing Chat GPT, say that 5 times fast, and other technology. A little bit of housekeeping right before. The course number and the information with regard to the CLE is going to be provided towards the end of this session. So please just pay attention. It will be its own dedicated slide with regard to the course number and what this qualifies for. I think also this qualifies for an ethics credit, which is very exciting. Don't we all need that? All right, and so we're going to get started. A little bit more housekeeping though, and I mentioned this before, but for those who have just joined, if you have any questions whatsoever, I will be answering them live at the very end of this CLE, probably in the last 5 minutes of it, but make sure to pop those questions into the Q&A section of your Zoom. So I don't really monitor chat because that would just be kind of insane as we go through this. So please, if you have questions that you'd like me to answer, just pop those into the Q&A at any time, and I'll get to those at the very end of the CLE. There also will be a post-webinar survey that will pop up once you exit out of Zoom. Please fill this out if you can. It kind of tells me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, if you liked it, if you didn't, if you never want to see my face or hear my vocal fry voice ever again, things like that. Feel free to put that into the survey. I will cry only a little bit and then move on with my life. And then last is the recording and the slides are going to be uploaded to Legal Fuel after the presentation. So that's where you can find them and that's where they have a home. All right, so a little bit about me. I am a practicing family law attorney down here in Texas. Yes, it's great, especially as we're going into the holidays. You can imagine that my clients are doing just fine. So I do that. And then in addition, I'm the legal technology advisor over here at Smokeball. And for those who are unfamiliar with what Smokeball is, we are an all-in-one cloud-based practice management software for attorneys. So this means that we help you manage all of your day-to-day workflows and business operations, from calendaring deadlines to drafting and automating pleadings to discovery, to final trial, to billing and collecting your money from clients. For some reason, clients never want to pay their divorce attorney. It's very strange. All the way to trust account reconciliation. We help you get things done faster, easier, and with less error. So everything is done in one place. You don't have to have 5 million tabs open just to work your cases as you go throughout the day, which is definitely how my firm used to function, and it drove me nuts. But if you want to learn more about Smokeball, excuse me, and how we can help your particular firm. We'll have a poll at the very end of this session where you can request that we reach out to you with more information. Also, shameless plug, but we are a member benefit provider for the Florida Bar, which means that you get a 10% discount on your software, which is a big deal. And Kathy will actually post a link to that in the chat if you would like to look into that and get more information. All right, so let's dive in. If I can stop coughing. We have a lot of stuff to cover today. My goal is that I'm going to give you a history of AI, how it's generally being used right now in the legal space, so that you can go away with an understanding of what's going on. I'm sure everybody here has heard of Chat GPT, but maybe you don't know how it functions. Maybe you don't know how it's being used in the legal space. So I'm going to take you through all of that. Wow. And then also, it's a big deal right now. There's a lot of dangers and possible ethical implications that we'll talk about too. And then along with, will AI actually replace attorneys? Spoiler alert, no, at least not yet. But we'll get into it. So, brief history of AI in the legal field. So we're going to back this up all the way to 1956. I'm going to be very brief about this. Do not worry. I'm not going to read all of these to you. But so in 1956, this was actually the first mention of the word or the phrase artificial intelligence that occurred at a Dartmouth conference, essentially. So that was all the way back in the 1950s. And then you see in the 1970s, there was this expansion of typewriters. So now more and more attorneys are using those. By the 1990s, right, personal computers became more mainstream, which is crazy to me because I had an opposing counsel as of last year who still only used typewriters, and I hate him. So it's interesting that typewriters are maybe still around when everybody else is using computers. Get with the times. And then we go into the early 2000s, which is really when you start seeing this AI for document review and e-discovery. And also that's when you start seeing Westlaw and Lexis really kind of come into their own for this, for case law research and things like that. And then in the late 2000s, you have this predictive analysis for case tools, advancements in contract management tools, case management software. This is really when it starts taking off and becoming more prevalent. And then you have in 2014 in Toronto, sorry, that's how the natives pronounce it, you have the development of Ross, and it's an AI system for legal research. And it really was this competitor to Westlaw and Lexis, so everybody was getting very excited about it. More and more people wanted to use Ross. Unfortunately, it had to be shut down in 2020 because Westlaw, or actually Thomson Reuters, which is the parent company of Westlaw, sued Ross for copyright infringement. So they alleged that Ross had stolen some critical features of Westlaw's platform to develop its own legal research offering. And so what ended up happening was Ross had to shut down. So that's why you no longer see it. And that's why there aren't that many competitors to Lexis and Westlaw, except for when Casetext and Fastcase kind of came around, and we'll talk about that too. But then you have in the 2010s, it's when these virtual assistants and chatbots that you see on all these websites, that's when this became super prevalent. And then in 2015, this is very important because that's when OpenAI was founded. OpenAI is the company that created GPT, which obviously Chat GPT is based off of. And so GPT-1, which was released in 2018, it consisted of 117 million parameters. So these parameters are what it learns from, right? So it's only 117 million of these parameters. It typically used books as training modules to predict the next word in a sentence. So it was very, very basic. But then in 2019, you have GPT-2 being released. And this was based off of 1.5 billion parameters. So that's up from 117 million, obviously. And this is when it really started producing this coherent multi-paragraph text. But due to potential misuse, who'd have thunk, OpenAI did not release this fully to the public. Eventually, they did this careful rollout so that they could study and mitigate the risks of it. And then GPT-3 came along in 2020. And this was trained on 175 billion parameters, which again, up from the 1.5 billion of the prior one. So you can imagine that this was a huge leap forward for GPT. So now it started to be able to draft emails, create poetry, things like that. And this was also when OpenAI made their API available to companies or to the public. And you'll hear API, this acronym, all the time, especially in the tech space, and it stands for Application Programming Interface. You do not have to remember that. The only thing to remember is that when you hear the phrase API, It just means that it's allowing two applications to talk to each other. So for instance, Smokeball, Smokeball integrates with LawPay, or LawPay integrates with Smokeball. That was made possible because our APIs were open to each other, so we were able to integrate. So now our two systems can talk to each other. I'm so sorry. So this is how you see other companies. You might see them in the news now where it's like, this company is now integrating with Chat GPT, or this company does something based off of Chat GPT. That is because OpenAI has made its API available to these companies. So that's why you'll see that all the time. I'm going to cough really quick for a sec. I swear I feel okay. This is so strange. Okay, so next. So now we're actually at Chat GPT, or sorry, not Chat. We are at GPT-4. And a good thing to remember about this and about GPT-4 especially is that there's a cutoff date for this software and for this program. So the cutoff date for GPT-4 is actually way back. It's September 2021. So be careful as you're going in, and if you're playing around with Chat GPT especially, and I'll go into how to get started, what to do. Be careful, because it's not going to be able to give you accurate up-to-the-minute data. You might think that it's learning up until that point of when you're using it. So, September 7th of 2023, but that is not the case. There is a cutoff point for this data generally. So be careful with that. Again, GPT-4 cutoff date is September 2021. So any type of resource website that was created after that date isn't going to be able to be included in the response to your prompting, right? And so, but that's really what it comes down to, and what GPT does is that it combs through the internet, kind of taking in all that data so that it can predict what you want it to say, essentially is what it does. And so GPT, as of 2023, Chat GPT and OpenAI, it's the fastest growing consumer software application in history. It now offers different tiers for use, so you can pay for one. There's still the free one that I use with reckless abandon all the time, within reason. But so now you can actually pay for different ones too. And I think I want to say as of May of this year, OpenAI was valued at $29 billion. So I think it's doing all right for itself. So. All right, so it's important, ChatGPT, or GPT took the bar exam, by the way, but it's important to put context on how rapidly things are changing in this arena. So as you just saw on the prior slide, AI has been around in one way or another for a very long time, right? Westlaw had their natural language querying, which is using AI to get past these Boolean terms and things like that. There's been e-discovery, legal research companies, right? They've been around for a long time in comparison. But this whole evolution for generative AI, so think Chat GPT, and we'll talk about what generative AI is, that's been happening extremely quickly. So GPT 3.5 came out, I think, November of last year, so fairly recently, and then GPT-4 was released this past February or March. So this is a really good example for the potential that it has in the legal profession. So back in December, when GPT-5 was still the prevailing model, these two law professors, Michael Bomarito and Daniel Katz, decided to put it to the test and have it take the bar exam. But they only had it take the multiple choice portion of the bar exam, so no essays. And it failed to pass, which haven't we all been there? But it actually did pretty well, and it came close to passing parts of it. So it passed the evidence portion of the multiple choice, and it also passed the torts portion of the multiple choice. So not terrible, but again, it did fail. But it gave this indication that this technology has some sort of application in the legal world. If it could do this well on the bar exam, what else could it do? If nothing else, it provided this really great fodder for the Onion to poke fun at the experiment. And if you can't read the headline, it says Chat GPT forced to take bar exam, even though dream was to be an AI art bot. Again, haven't we all been there? But I will say, it took the bar exam again, and second time is the charm. So this GPT-4 came out, and GPT-4 was trained on billions of more parameters than GPT-3 or 3.5. So it took the test again, and it included essays this time. So using GPT-4, and then in collaboration with the AI legal company Casetext, which we'll talk about, the law professors Katz and Bomarito had this AI take the full bar exam, including essays and multiple choice. This time, not only did it pass, which is wild in and of itself, but it exceeded the average score of real life bar exam takers. So overall in the multi-state exam, I want to say that it scored somewhere in the neighborhood of 76% accuracy, which was 15% above the minimum passing threshold. And it outperformed the average human test taker, I want to say, by 7%, which is, you know, wild. So it did best in, it's like a little kid going off to school. It did best in contracts, evidence, criminal law, property, and con law. But it's still, even the other ones it didn't do well in, it still passed every single subject. So why does all of this matter? Well, it demonstrates that generative AI, and we'll talk about what generative actually means. It demonstrates that this type of AI has the capacity to understand, you know, this legal language. If it can pass the bar exam, then arguably it should be able to perform a variety of other tasks in the legal field. And it really does scare me because in some way, you know, in some ways, this is a really cute parlor trick, like, yay, it passed the bar exam, good for it. But in other ways, it's kind of scary because it's demonstrating the potential of AI and how powerful it can be in the legal realm. So everything just scares me. All right, so promise that we'll talk about extractive AI versus generative AI. So extractive AI is AI that helps you find results within an existing set of data. So think about Westlaw, right? When you're searching for a specific case, this is searching an existing body of data. You're searching through the cases that Westlaw has in its system along with the rules and statutes and regulations that it has, right? That is an existing pool of data that it is taking from. Generative AI is an entirely different class than most of the AI that we're accustomed to. It does the opposite from extractive AI. So instead of, you know, just taking results from existing data and then spitting something out, it's creating all new content from existing data. So it's learning from these huge sections of text that it's read, and then it creates new text based on what it's learned, which again is very scary. So because I think, you know, the legal profession is based on words and document creation. And so this technology is potentially very powerful. But what do I mean by this generative AI being able to produce new text where it's not just spitting out something that is already in existence? So for instance, it's what they call a predictive text, where it's going to predict the next word in a series of words. So for example, let's say Mary went to the grocery store to buy a carton of blank, or a gallon of blank. We know that this means milk, right? And our brains immediately know that this means milk. Well, same thing with generative AI. It is combed through the corners and crevices of the internet to find what that next word would likely be. So it's going to be able to predict that it's milk. Or if you say Mary went to the store to buy a 6-pack of blank, it's probably going to know that you meant beer, things like that. So that's what it means by generative versus extractive. In generative AI, by studying just a metric ton of text, knows what the next word should be, but it's not able yet to replace that kind of sophisticated analysis that lawyers are trained to give, at least not yet. And we'll talk about that. So how are attorneys using AI? So I'm just going to go through some examples. This is particularly going to relate to Chat GPT. I encourage everyone on here to get to sign up for Chat GPT. It is completely free. You just have to go to chat.openai.com and you can just log in with your email, create a username, password, and there you go. You're off to the races. But definitely I encourage you to play around with it. With some caveats that we will go into about confidentiality. So play around with it, but make sure to pay attention to what I'm going to talk about when I talk about ethical implications in a little bit. So this is something that I had Chat GPT do, where I plugged in an article from the Washington Post, you know, in its hottest spots. Heat is testing the limits of human survival. And I asked GPT to summarize this article, which it did. So the text on the bottom is it summarizing this article for me. Now, the cool thing about this too, and you'll learn as you play around with it more and more, is that you can tweak this even more. So say maybe I didn't want this long of a summary. So if Chat GPT spits this out for me, I can then ask it to say, hey, can you condense this summary down into 5 sentences? And it will do it. And it's actually going to give me a very succinct and usually honestly very accurate summary of what this of what this is about, what this post is about, what this article is about. So it's kind of crazy. And then you can change it too. You can say, okay, can you summarize this article, but make it so that it's for an audience full of attorneys. So maybe it's going to put some other verbiage in there, you know, with regard to attorneys. You can be very creative with it when it comes to these summaries. It's very interesting. All right, and blog posts. This is a big one, especially if this was on your this is on your checklist for your firm where you're like, oh, I have to do blog posts for SEO purposes. This can help you. I'm not saying that this should be your sole source. You shouldn't pull down, you know, this blog post and immediately upload it to your website, but this is absolutely a starting point. So for instance, I asked Chat GPT, can you give me a 600-word blog post on custody evaluators? And it did, and actually it ain't too shabby. So a good part of this is, especially if you're just getting writer's block, and this is one of the last things you have to do, because obviously this is non-billable administrative work, boo, but it's something that you can use when you really just need to get going and get the creative juices flowing so that you can get something uploaded to your firm's website, things like that. And then also for just ideation, so thinking about something, you know, as a starting point. So we've all been there. It's 10 p.m. It's the night before a hearing or a contested, you know, a contested trial, something like that. And you're just all out of thoughts at this point. You've hit a wall. And so maybe you're just trying, the last thing you need to do is just make your opening argument. And so I'm asking it to give me a good opening argument for a contested divorce case. And so it will do that. And you'll notice it says, ladies and gentlemen of the court, esteemed members of the jury, and your honor, I can go back and ask Chat GPT and say, this is a bench trial, there's no jury trial, please rewrite this. And it will do that. And it will remove references to the jury and things like that. So it's getting smarter, or at least I'm getting better at being able to kind of tell it what to do. But you can get, again, you can get very granular with this if you really wanted to. Like, hey, I don't want to use any words. I don't want to use the word anger, you know, during any of this opening argument, and it will remove all of those words from here. So you can really take it and run with it too. And honestly, especially for, where am I? Yes. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. Now we go. And then also for drafting, it's a huge deal because again, it's like a starting point for a client. So I asked it, can you draft an email about the discovery process to a client? And it did it. And it's honestly, again, not bad, which should scare me a little bit, but this is really for drafting, especially, this is one of the areas where it's proving to be incredibly powerful. So for instance, there was a new product that came out about a month ago. It was where NetDocs said that they were incorporating this GPT software into their own document assembly program, which sounds super cool. They gave a demo where the lawyer had to take information and synthesize a bunch of information from a lot of different documents. And it demonstrated how in seconds, this technology was capable of pulling key points out of all of these different documents, summarizing them, and then synthesizing them into a cohesive single brief that was basically almost ready to be filed with the court. So kind of crazy. And a good thing to remember about this, though, for programs like this, like NetDocs has especially, you're not drafting things out of thin air. It's really just taking materials that you already have and synthesizing those for you and putting it to the format that you like. So there's going to be some really cool stuff, I think, happening over the next few years. And then other AI exists, and we'll talk about it too, where let's say you have voluminous documents, you know, you do a lot of discovery work in your practice. So there's AI that exists that will, for instance, comb through all of these documents, they'll OCR all your text and things like that. And then you can ask it and say, okay, technology, I need you to make a privilege log with regard to all of these documents, and it will do it. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, so sky's the limit, I think, right now with all of this. So not attorney related right now, but it's absolutely happening in schools. 1000% now happening in law schools. So professors are having to come to grips with it and figure out what they want to do. But obviously, students are using Chat GPT to help them with their exams. So some students are saying, I'm getting away with it, nobody's noticing it. There was another student that actually created an app that can tell whether you're using AI to help write your essays. So I think what's going to happen is it's going to be similarly with plagiarism software that's already in existence. I do think that software will be released that will be able to tell whether you've had AI help you write your essay. But again, that's going to be a lot harder. But I've heard a lot of law professors talking about this too. And, you know, a lot of debate happening on whether they should embrace this and say, okay, we don't care if you use it, or fight it. And we'll talk about some things that have been happening in the news with this stuff too in a little bit. All right, so how are legal technology companies utilizing AI? So I just want to give you some ideas, I want to give you an idea of what companies are doing essentially out there, because I feel like a lot of times we're talking about AI and legal technology, but we have no idea what the heck that actually means and what they can do. So just some examples that are kind of that I just pulled forward. First is Spellbook. They're a company that does drafting, and they also do contract comparison. So basically they can tell you, hey, here's a provision that you might want to insert into this agreement after they analyzed it for you, after this AI analyzed it. And I'll say this too, AI, a lot of this software is still very much in its infancy. There are a lot of kinks to work out with a lot of this. New announcements are basically happening every day. If you've been keeping track of anything in the legal technology space and AI and GPT being integrated, I swear, at least on a weekly basis, there's something new. There's something new to see, or some technology has added GPT as a component to their software and things like that. But just keep in mind that there's a lot more to come with all of this. And then here's another example. You have Lawmatics, which is an intake and marketing software for firms. And so they introduced LMAI that will help you draft emails. So this is, sorry, it's blurry, but it's basically a completely AI drafted email. It was somebody that missed their appointment, I think. And so they can email you back and say, hey, let's reschedule your phone number, things like that. Or if you would like to reschedule your consultation, click here. But the cool thing about it is nobody had to draft anything. It was completely done by AI. Also, it integrates with Smokeball, shameless plug. Right, and then you have some of the heavy hitters. So let's say LexisNexis, they have Lexis Plus, which is an AI-based legal research and drafting assistant. So it'll help you more with your legal research, but it will also say, hey, based on everything that we've seen and similarly situated types of cases, here's a drafting note for you, or maybe here's a provision that we suggest. So pretty cool. And again, this is just growing and growing and growing. And then case text. So case text is very interesting right now. So case text is a legal research offering, and it was, I say was, competing with LexisNexis and Westlaw. So everybody was really happy with it. Competition is great, especially when it comes to legal research engines, because I feel like price gouging happens aplenty space. But case text has just been sold, and I think they finalized it. I think it passed DOJ approval for, I want to say, $650 million. So Thomson Reuters, the parent company of Westlaw, bought case text. So congratulations to the case text people. A little sad for us who like healthy competition. But the cool thing about case text is that they had introduced CoCounsel, which is an AI kind of software for document review and for legal research. So it's worth noting that this was actually pretty cool, because case text was one of the most advanced users of this GPT technology in the legal space, because they were able to partner with OpenAI, which obviously the company behind GPT. They were able to get access to GPT-4 before anyone really even knew that GPT-4 was coming down the pipe. So Casetext started working with them almost a year ago, I want to say. And so they released their CoCounsel product in January. And so they were really one of the first ones out of the gate with a really strong generative AI product. So it pays to be cutting edge, especially for Casetext. And there are 650 million ways that it paid. And then you also have companies like Disco, which does e-discovery and document review. So for a lot of these companies, sorry, my nose keeps itching, but for a lot of these companies, this AI, you'll notice, is geared towards big law firms, sometimes called enterprise firms, which doesn't really concern me because I am a solo and small family law attorney. But I will say, as time goes on, I think especially over the next 3 years, you're going to see this break more into the solo and small and boutique firm place. And I think that we're going to see an explosion of AI in solo and small tech company software. So just keep an eye out. Oh, something that's not legal tech related, but is technology related for AI. I highly recommend you play around with it. It's called Otter AI. It is a transcription service. So obviously this isn't going to be your certified translation service or transcription service or anything like that. But when you need a quick and dirty transcription, this is beautiful. So I'll use these sometimes for interviews. I have a business account with Otter AI. So I'll use these sometimes for interviews that I do for my website, or for instance, I know a lot of friends that are actually in the prosecutor's office around the country where they'll use these for, or a public defender office, I'm sorry. Well, they'll use these for quick and dirty transcription for dash cam or body cam footage when they're just trying to figure out what's going on and they're just diving into the case before they can get the formal transcription. So it helps a lot with that too. So really, for instance, also when there's a, when there's a piece of evidence that you need to use for a hearing, so maybe your client recorded a phone call, something like that. Texas is a one-party consent state, and they just really want to be able to see what the client said, and maybe they don't want to have to listen to 3 hours of a transcription to figure out if it's, to figure out if it's something relevant for their hearing or not. Plug it in here, and that's also really cool. Something very interesting, I think. Works very well. Personally used it. I like it a lot. But use the biz account if you have it, I think, for confidentiality purposes. All right, next, can you use chat? How can you use Chat GPT in your firm? So I really want you to think of it like an assistant, but the number one thing that we'll talk about soon is keeping confidentiality in mind. So it's important to acknowledge the fact that Chat GPT is also not the only tool out there that is doing things like this. When we talk about generative AI, which again, AI that is now predictive as opposed to just spitting out answers to you, there's a range of products that now exist. So some of them are coming from OpenAI, right? Chat GPT. That's the one that developed Chat GPT, but there's also Google and Meta, formerly Facebook, and others out there that have their own generative AI tools. And they're based on these, what they call large language models. And large language models refer to the fact that they're being trained. So this AI is being trained against these huge swaths of text, and they're actually training against those huge swaths of text. And so the problem with some of these is we don't know how much they're being trained on legal materials versus, say, random Reddit hate groups, right? So it's difficult to ascertain what they're actually being trained against, which is an issue because then it could be giving you false information. And that's why a lot of these companies, it's kind of a black box in a sense of how they work, because they don't necessarily tell you what exact text they're training against, right? A lot of this is proprietary data that, for instance, OpenAI is not going to reveal because they want to continue making money. But there are apps, and I say this, there are apps that are training generative AI against more legal specific models and materials, like a firm's own document management system, like what I just told you about NetDocs. That's being trained against your own document management system and nothing else. Or like in case text, where they're using something called retrieval augmented generation. When you run a query into case text, it's running it against the collection of case law and statutes that currently exist in its system. It's not saying, oh, we're opening this all up to the internet and let's see what 4chan will say when you're asking for, case law in California for this one particular case, right? So it's really only training against legal specific cases, software regulations, things like that. So you're less likely to have false returns or hallucinations that we'll talk about, where you run this risk of them spitting out bad case law or fictitious case law, and then you end up looking like a dum-dum in front of a judge, which has happened to quite a few people now, and we'll talk about it. But really, going back to thinking of Chat GPT and how to use it like an assistant, but not an associate attorney, right? So keep confidentiality in mind as you go through it. We'll talk about it. Use it to draft first rounds of letters, emails, or blog posts. I think that's what it excels at. You can obtain, I guess, again, summaries of longer texts or sets of documents. And it's, to me, an incredible tool when you have writer's block. Incredible tool. Right, so dangers and ethical implications when it comes to GPT and just generative AI in general. So a big thing that you're going to see is something called hallucinations. So Chat GPT kind of lies sometimes, and it doesn't mean to. So a good thing to remember about all of this is AI in general just wants to please you. And sometimes it wants to please you so much that it will just make things up because it thinks that will make you happy. So it doesn't mean to lie to you, but it does because, again, it just wants to make you happy. So keep that in mind, that you cannot trust anything that Chat GPT or any type of other generative AI gives you, you must verify it for yourself. And we'll talk about some use cases with that and how that kind of backfired on people a little bit. So for instance, this is an example of a hallucination. So back in, I think, the spring of this past year, LawDroid, which is kind of like a marketing website-based company for attorneys, or software for attorneys, they launched this product that was based on Chat GPT. And they were like, yep, you can use it. It can help you with drafting. And so, you know, this one you were asking it, for instance, this person said, I need to explain to my client, reminding them about attorney-client privilege and not to talk to third parties. Please provide citation to California Rules of Professional Conduct. And it spits out this email, and this email looks beautiful. It even cites to the rules of professional conduct. It even provides a quote. So this looks very much legitimate. And it was wonderful. And then somebody started noticing, oh, actually, though, that rule does not exist and is completely made up. Like this reference and this quote are completely fake. And, you know, GPT just basically made these up because, again, it wants to please you. And even the company at first did not pick up on this. They had to be pointed out by a third party, essentially, but it was a hallucination, right? GPT lied to you as you were trying to type this email. So again, it just underscores the fact that you cannot take what it gives you at face value. You must always check, verify, verify, verify. And again, be careful because it looks very convincing. On the surface, you would not think that anything was wrong. All right, and then we have ethical implications. With regard to things that happen in court that maybe should not have happened. So we had in New York, I believe this was in Manhattan, where a lawyer had to apologize for fake court citations that were made from Chat GPT. So a judge essentially looked at this, said, this doesn't really look right. He raised doubts about it. And then he told the attorneys, okay, I don't think this looks right. We're going to break and we'll reconvene, and please just verify this and let me know. So the attorney actually goes back to Chat GPT and types in there and says, hey, is Varghese a real case? And then ChatGPT doubles down and says, yes, it's a real case. And then the attorney asked for its source. ChatGPT again said the case was real. And then ChatGPT said, I apologize for the confusion earlier. Upon double checking, I found the case Varghese v. China Southern Airlines, and then it gives a convincing citation, does exist and can be found on legal research databases such as Westlaw and LexisNexis. I apologize for any inconvenience or confusion that my earlier responses may have caused. So the attorneys took this back to the court, and the court at this point was fed up and they got sanctioned. So because it was a completely made up case, made up citations, and the attorneys doubled down on it when they should have just checked the actual site instead of checking with ChatGPT. Also, it's a red flag. You should know this, and you know, when it says it can be found on legal research databases Westlaw and LexisNexis, there is no way in hell that Westlaw or Lexis is making their case law and their databases publicly available to be scraped by ChatGPT. So that also should have been a red flag for that attorney. So another thing too, just again, verify everything, especially for case law. So this one happened in my great state where we had a judge down here, Judge Brantley Starr, who actually banned filings that were solely created by AI because he was seeing what was happening in all these Chat GPT, like made up cases that were going around the country. So he said, I'm not gonna do that. And in fact, he said, quote, this is a good quote. He said, unlike attorneys who have sworn to faithfully uphold the law on behalf of their clients, AI tools are unbound by any sense of duty, honor, or justice. Which is true, but he kind of took it a step further. So what he did was he makes you now, everybody who practices in his court, sign this attestation, which is you saying that you have not used or drafted this via generative artificial intelligence. So including quotations, citations, paraphrased assertions, and legal analysis, that you're going to check it for accuracy using print reporters or traditional legal databases by a human being before it is submitted to the court. So you have to say that no portion of any filing in this case will be drafted by generative AI. Or if you do, that it will be checked by a human. So they now make you sign that in Judge Starr's court, which is very interesting. I think that we're probably going to see more and more of this as time goes on. And then this was something that was found by Mark Palmer, actually, pretty early on, I think, of playing around in the early days of playing around with Chat GPT. So he asked for some cases. He said, hey, I really want some case law. And then he realized very quickly, once he compared it to Fastcase, that all of these cases were made up. None of them were real, not a one. But again, it's because Chat GPT and other AI really just want to please you. That is all that they want to do. Don't know why my nose keeps itching. Allergies in Austin. All right, so getting into the actual nitty-gritty ethical implications from the Florida rules. So Rule 4-1.6 about confidentiality of information. So you must not reveal information relating to a client's representation. And then 4-1.9, duty to former clients, that you still owe that same confidentiality obligation to your former clients. Full stop. And what does that mean, and why do we care when it comes to generative AI or using AI in general, or just using AI? When you are using, let's say, Chat GPT, and you might feel like, oh my God, I just had this 3-hour phone call with or I just had this 3-hour Zoom meeting with my client. I recorded it so that I could refer back to it. But I really just want it summarized. So maybe I'm going to get a transcript from that, because Zoom provides a transcript. And then I think I'm going to plug that transcript into Chat GPT and just ask it to make a summary for me. Obviously, that is a problem because you are revealing confidential information to a third-party software. So right then and there, you're going to have an issue with the bar, right? And as far as revealing confidential information. So it's worth being cognizant kind of as you navigate these AI waters. So when you're using an app like ChatGPT, you are sharing that information. Anything that you type in there, whether it's a question or you're putting in just a bunch of text, you are sharing that information with a third-party company. And these companies aren't necessarily keeping this data confidential. So OpenAI, no matter what, is saving all of your queries, I think, for at least 30 days. And then they were, for a time, using the queries that you put into it to further train their models. I don't think they're doing that anymore. They're not doing that anymore with the paid version, I think, but they're still doing that for the free version. So keep confidentiality in mind as you go through and kind of play around with these tools. So again, if you are putting client information into Chat GPT, that is a problem, and you are treading into very dangerous territory. Right, pretty much every state has some form of this too, where it's a duty of technology competence, which means that anytime that you adopt or use a piece of technology in your firm, that you are required to understand the benefits and the risks associated with that relevant technology. So you can't really stick your head in the sand when you say, oops, I didn't know. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to use that with Chat GPT. I had no idea. That's no longer a sufficient response. You, as the attorney, have a duty to maintain this technology competence, whether you want to or not. So thank you for being here at the CLE and taking that step, going one step further to really try to understand what you should and should not be doing with this. Right, and just wanting to point out too, Chat GPT and GPT-4 are proprietary black boxes. We do not know exactly how they work, right? Because again, that's how OpenAI and others make their money. They don't want to tell you how it works. So I will say this, always, always, always supervise the output that comes out of these pieces of software and never take anything at face value. Some technology companies with AI put guardrails in place where they let you see sources of where it's getting its answers. So for instance, Case Text Co-Counsel does this. It'll say, hey, here's your case law, or here's what we're thinking, and here's where we got it from. So you can actually double check the sites and things like that. And same for many kind of tech companies out there in the contract space. They do the same thing. They tell you, they cite their sources, they say where they got it from, and it's easily verifiable. So for instance, for a lot of these contract pieces of software, it'll give you the source of the clause that it's suggesting that you add, and it'll tell you, here's why I think you should, and here's where this came from. So that makes it very handy to double check your work. But really, the bottom line in all of it is it's important to be looking for tools that are legal area specific, and making sure that that particular company is developing a responsible product. Because if it's legal specific, then at least usually they have these guardrails in place where they're not sharing your information, and their technology for everyone isn't solely learning from yours, right? It's kind of like yours is completely partitioned and siloed, your technology and your your documents and things like that. Also, absolutely, you should be doing your research. Companies like LexisNexis, they're reaching agreements with some of these generative AI companies so that none of your data is going back and forth, kind of what I just said. So for Lexis, if you're using their generative AI tools, for instance, your queries aren't leaving LexisNexis. So Chat GPT isn't going to be able to comb through the data that you just searched for on LexisNexis and things like that. And in some cases, they aren't even leaving your browser, which is pretty cool. So you don't ever have to worry about those security issues, but really do your research, vet your technology providers is your big thing. Right, and the big question on everyone's mind with regard to AI is, will it actually replace us? And short answer, no, at least not anytime in the near future. This happens frequently, right? I think we saw this a lot when LegalZoom first came out. There were a lot of attorneys, especially in the family law and estate planning space, where, you know, a lot of us were like, this is going to put us out of business. You know, what are we going to do here? But turns out, actually, it hasn't really had much of an impact. I don't know anybody that it put out of business. And now a lot of us have very lucrative practices cleaning up stuff that LegalZoom messed up for our clients. So actually, if anything, it's been a boon for me. But really, when it comes to generative AI, it is not yet able to think in a way that lawyers do. So it can expedite routine work, right? Make that a lot easier. It can sort of put together and create suggestions of text, but I don't think it's going to replace us. They still need us whether they like us or not. All right, and then also too, I will say that we're kind of still behind the times. This happens a lot with attorneys, where we're about 10 years behind other practice area or other not legal professionals. We're about 10 years behind other professionals, and with regard to adopting technology and things like that. So for instance, CPAs are a lot more are leaps and bounds ahead of us. Lawyers are just, we're crotchety and we like what we like. But so, and it's kind of the same with AI. So they did a survey, I think LawSites did, where they said 81% of attorneys said that they weren't using AI in their legal work at all. Just 2% of legal professionals said that they were using something daily that had AI in it, and 9% said that they were using them on a weekly basis. So I think it's going to take a while for us to get comfortable with adopting AI, but I do think it's coming. Just give it a couple of years. Because at the end of the day, it should just be making your life easier. All right, so before we get to Q&A, I just want to point out little things that are in the news because it's so much fun. You know, as with crypto, it's all fun and games until the FTC gets involved, and the FTC is now involved with OpenAI. So this headline says, chasing defamatory hallucinations, FTC opens investigation into OpenAI. They want to do an investigation about those hallucinations and what this actually means for the product. So who knows what will happen there? I don't think it's impacted the valuation or anything like that for OpenAI, but we shall see. And then Google actually was hit with the class action lawsuit over AI data scraping. And again, for those not familiar with what scraping is, it's just them taking in those huge, large text modules and learning from them. So it's just taking in all that data. That's what they call data scraping. So essentially, these plaintiffs said, hey, Google, you misused content that I had posted on my social media. And even though I shared it on Google platforms, I did not know that you were training your chatbot over my social media and things like that. So that's what that lawsuit is about. It's now a class action lawsuit. This one's just funny and scary and sad. Where it says, whoops, Samsung workers accidentally leaked trade secrets via Chat GPT. So what I just talked about with regard to confidentiality and not putting anything sensitive or anything that could implicate your client in their confidentiality rule, you know, that 4-1.9, this is what I meant. Do not do that. So they got in trouble and actually leaked trade secrets from the company into Chat GPT. Super fun. Oh, also just saying too, don't trust your employees to know better than to not do this. If you are going to use it, and honestly, there's a pretty fair chance right now that at least one of your employees is using Chat GPT in some fashion. You should be telling your entire office right now to not use it when it comes to confidential client information, because I can guarantee you there's probably someone in your office right now using it and they might be doing it wrong. And then next, I just wanted to talk really quick before we get into Q&A about a significant future trend that's probably going to impact a lot of us. I'm sure most of you have heard about how Utah and Arizona have dramatically revised their ethical rules, and they now allow for private ownership of law practices, which is wild. And they also allow entities other than lawyers, so now paralegals and things like that, to deliver legal services. So I think that's relevant here because we kind of have a perfect storm of circumstances going on between this rapidly evolving technology of AI that's capable of generating legal output in some ways. Obviously, it's not perfect. And you have these new rules kind of liberalizing how technology can be used to deliver these legal services. So I think this is about to kind of hit, I think we're about to hit the eye of the storm on that probably in the next few years. So as we watch this space, I think more and more states are going to be looking at revising their rules, honestly, I imagine. And that's going to give more and more opportunities for this type of technology to grow and use advanced things like AI, for this in order to provide more legal services for more people. And so I really do think that we're going to be seeing some pretty dramatic changes in how legal services are being delivered in this country. And I think also too, at least I've noticed it, maybe not in every jurisdiction, but I think courts are slowly, finally starting to get more tech savvy. I had a judge that just instituted online calendaring, which is blowing everyone's mind. But again, it's very judge specific. They're all special snowflakes, as we know. And so, but I have seen this more and more as time goes on, where we do have these judges kind of trying to take their courtrooms into the 21st century, which is pretty exciting. Oh, and that's just what I was talking about before. Hello. All right, so to really sum up before we get to questions. So AI and other powerful technologies akin to that are upending how legal work gets done, and it's requiring a new skill set of us, because I do think it behooves us to get familiar with things like Chat GPT and understand how they work. It's almost like we're stepping into a new era of legal practice, which is a little scary, but also a little cool, because I do think that so much of this can make things easier for us and can make our offices more efficient, which is honestly kind of a little bit what practice management software does. Like, not to be a complete shill, but truly that's what it does. A lot of this is just trying to make you more money and trying to get you more free time back in your day. So I think while this is a little bit scary, I do think that in the end, this will be a good thing for us as attorneys. And also too, the pandemic really accelerated tech adoption. Pretty much, we did a study where I think it was something like 80% of firms adopted at least one form of new legal technology throughout the pandemic, and it's because we had to. A lot of us were still, again, pretty stuck in our ways, and it accelerated it. But then again, it also accelerated AI and things like GPT, which is pretty crazy to see. And then you have what we just talked about. These regulatory reforms are putting tech kind of at the epicenter of how legal services are going to be delivered now and into the future. So really, again, you're going to be seeing some rapid changes probably in the next 3 to 5 years, I would imagine. And I think it's going to make things a lot more spicy in the legal technology space. All right, and right before we get into our Q&A, I just want to say, I know AI can be a little bit scary, but legal technology can be critical to the success of your firm, and it can kind of get you to dip your toes into the water of legal technology, which is very nice. So really, truly, if you have any questions about what a practice management system is, how this impacts your entire firm ecosystem and things like that, please just let me know, or you can answer this poll, which I think we'll be launching right now, Kathy. Maybe. Or maybe not. There it goes. Okay, so there's a poll. So right before we get into Q&A, so please put your questions into that Q&A box if you have anything for me. But if you'd like to learn about what we do, what a practice management software is, or how we compare to your current practice management software, your current setup, please select yes. We'll reach out to you and probably schedule a customized demo for your firm. Smokeball is an incredible piece of software. I now use it, and my daily firm, my old firm, now uses it as their practice management system. So it really is an incredible piece of software. So if you want to learn how it can help you, how it can be completely customized to your area of law, it's a beautiful thing. It really did change the way that I practice. I encourage you to select yes, and someone from our team will reach out to you. All right, and I think we can close that. Perfect. Oh, also shameless plug again that we are an approved member benefit provider for the Florida Bar. I love the Florida Bar, and I really thank y'all for continuing to have me. But this means that you get a 10% discount on our subscription. So this is a huge deal. Kathy will pop the link into the chat if you'd like to click on that and explore that, or you can also click on this QR code and hold your phone up to that. It'll take you to that page also. But again, very, very happy to be here with the Florida Bar. And then I promise, so here is your CLE information. So, oh, it's not ethics credit, sorry, it's general and technology. You get an hour of it. So the course number is 7909. Again, that course number is 7909. You get an hour of general credit, an hour of technology credit. 7909. Is everybody awake? 7909. All right, and then we'll get into questions. So Kathy, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do, Jordan. So, so the first question is, if the Chat GPT 4 cutoff is 9/21, does that mean it is providing outdated information, like cases that may not be current and rules that may have been amended? Is that part of the hallucination problem?
Correct. So that's part of it too, except you should never ask for case law on it. I haven't seen one instance of GPT giving accurate case information because, again, it's kind of stuck on what it can give you because it doesn't have access to the main databases like of Westlaw or Lexis, right? So I haven't heard it ever do that. But with regard to other things, yes, that is a problem where if the cutoff date is 2021 and you're asking maybe about something that happened, maybe a big lawsuit that hit the news in 2022, it's not going to know that, right? So just be cognizant of that. But yes, that's exactly right. I think that's part of the reason why it can give these hallucinations, because it's also just basing a lot of it on outdated data.
Okay, and the next question is, how do you feel about Zoom's changes to its terms and agreement? I'm sorry, terms and conditions.
Oh, that happened. So for those not familiar, this kind of like blew up a lot in a lot of, at least in Texas, and a lot of closed attorney groups and things like that, where Zoom tweaked its terms and conditions, and it didn't really tell anybody, and it didn't make a big deal about it, but it was basically Zoom saying that they're now training their own AI bot, and that, hey, they're going to be using maybe some of your data, which means that, hey, maybe they're going to use the transcript from that mediation that you did, 2 days ago and things like that. So of course, attorneys freaked out and they said, hey, Zoom, this is a material breach of contract here. I never agreed to this. I don't want any bot scraping my data because, again, there's confidentiality implications here, right? Especially you have all these courts too that are using nothing but Zoom, right? And so everybody started freaking out. I know quite a few Texas attorneys that immediately canceled their, subscriptions and things like that. So Zoom said, Zoom immediately backtracked. I think same day, Zoom immediately backtracked and said, hey, we're updating our terms of service and we're going to confirm that we're not using audio or video or chat customer content to train our AI. Like, we're not doing that to train our models, full stop. And we're not going to do that without consent. And so I think that's kind of mollified everybody, but you still have attorneys say, well, I feel like Zoom has the ability to opt me in, without definitively me saying that I want to opt in. So they're scared that Zoom is just automatically going to say, hey, unless you opt out, we're not really going to tell you that this is happening. We're just going to take your data. Zoom has been pretty forthcoming right now saying, hey, that's not the case, and no, and we reworded our terms of service. So I think they're doing right by everyone, but definitely something to keep track of, because it's one of those things where, and I'll say this too, a little bit of caution, if you are using technology that is not completely catered towards attorneys, these are companies that do not care about your bar license, right? They do not care about attorney-client privilege or client confidentiality, right? They don't care about that. They just want your money and they're providing you a service. So again, be very cautious when you're using these non-legal specific softwares, because they do not care. It's like using Square it's like using Square instead of LawPay, right? Where it's like Square doesn't care about your trust account, and whether you're violating it or not, because it's taking your processing fees from your trust account rather than your operating, right? And that's why LawPay and other companies like that came around came about, and it's because they cared about your trust account, because they care about you being able to practice law and then give them more money, right? And so be very careful when it comes to things like Zoom. I know I also mentioned Otter AI. Be careful with that too. So that's why business version of Otter AI. And I don't necessarily put anything that would implicate client confidentiality issues for the bar. So just be very, very careful when it's not a legal-based technology software.
And then somebody did ask about if the materials will be shared. So just a reminder to everybody that the recording of this presentation and the slide deck will be uploaded to LegalFeel after the presentation. So you should see that shortly.
And are we done with questions, Kathy?
We are done with questions.
All right, awesome. Oh my God, I finished on time. Everybody get excited. So I really want to thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions that maybe you were just scared to ask, please feel free to email me. I am jordan.turk@smokeball.com. This QR code will take you to my LinkedIn page. Please feel free to add me. Sometimes I say some pithy things about legal technology and AI, but really, if you have any questions whatsoever about AI, what we just talked about, or about Smokeball in general, I am happy to answer anything. If you want to continue the discussion, please feel free to email me. But thank you again to the Florida Bar for having me. And really just a reminder that there's going to be a pop-up after this when you exit out of Zoom. That will be a survey that will tell me what I did good, what I did wrong. If you'd like to see more of this, what other topics maybe you'd be looking into. But this is very important for me to know what you'd like to see from us in the future. So I really thank you and appreciate you filling that out. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for spending your lunch break with me, and I really do appreciate it.